Like there's a lot of shame when a major thing happens because we just don't know what to do. And I'm like, what if data art was a go-to modality, kind of like playing Monopoly or getting your hair done? Like we do things to feel a certain way. And this is a very collaborative, conversational, and playful approach to solving problems, to understanding wealth building, to understand not being codependent on our partner.
Coach Lori here. You've been thinking about starting a podcast for months, maybe even years. But every time you sit down, the questions pile up. What will I call it? What will the cover look like? What am I going to talk about? Who will even listen? And where do I start? That's where Podcrafter comes in. It takes away the overwhelm and does the heavy lifting for you. Cover art, titles, even your tagline. It creates and scripts your episodes for you. It's programmed to do a podcast with the things that I teach. For instance, how to hit the road running, what's a good hook, all those things that take time and energy to figure out. Podcrafter does it for you. So in 7 days or less, you'll have a podcast ready to launch and you'll step into your role as the authority in your field. Your voice, your story, your stage, finally live. Go to Coach Lori, LAURIE.com.
Because the idea of 3 or 4 people coming together, gathering, break bread, have some food, order pizza, and then doodling the data. And part of it with like the allocation station module is to prevent train wreck.
Has your life, your dreams been interrupted? Good news. It is possible to reinvent our lives. People are doing it every day, and some are brave enough to share the struggles, disappointments, and challenges. If you are looking for a new beginning, a do-over, or to rediscover your passion, maybe even find a new one, then grab a cup of coffee and let's talk. Interrupted, Act 2, Reinventing Your Legacy, with your host, Coach Lori.
Marcelle Allen. First of all, I love your name. It's my daughter-in-law's name, and it's just an amazing, beautiful name. Oh, this is so cool because I did not know what was until you and I talked about it a few months ago. So I'm so excited for you to tell us about it. But you're a data artist.
Mm-hmm.
Is it data or data?
Either way.
It's like gala or gala.
Yeah. Tomato.
Yeah. And social media manager. Also, you are the co-owner and founder of Laugh Tech. Welcome.
Yay. Thanks, Lori. So happy to be here. And thanks for coming out to my space last week to do your first data art demo.
That was so amazing. And honestly, you had asked me a question before I left about, do you think about, like, when you do something, then do you think about it later? And I was like, oh, yeah, sometimes. Honestly, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And it was so interesting because I had a sales call after that. Mm-hmm. And it went brilliantly. And I thought, I wonder if I was thinking flowers instead of numbers.
Yeah.
Tell us what you do and everything you love about it.
Yeah, sure. So I run a company called Dreamosity, been around for about 16 years now. And right before COVID, I published a book called Financial Joy, Know the Data Behind Your Dreams. And what I had done, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was making data art. I was taking data and turning it into something different with artistic presentation. I had actually turned the net profit into a circular diagram. Kind of looks like this. This one's the cash creator, one of the illustrations. And then one of them was about just noticing the flow of money. So one, an exercise in awareness, and one, an exercise in, are we asking for what we want as women or men in business? Are we actually going for the sale? Or are we just making more friends? And so it's, it's been wonderful.
You held up the piece of paper, which was, it looks like a kind of a half circle because it's not all the way finished.
Yeah, this one's partial, but it's the cash creator.
Yeah, and these are all over your wall, and Marcelle showed me where the art is going to go. And the thing is we all know we have different learning, and I feel like I'm an audio learner, mm-hmm. but that activity really, I feel like it kind of meshed the things that I know and the things I'm working on, and art is so beautiful. And when we had talked about data art, you were showing me some pictures on the wall, and I didn't quite comprehend it. I still don't think I do fully, but I love how you use it in a way not only to show, but to teach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, it was interesting. So maybe 10 years ago now, my dad was like, look, if you don't get good at the numbers, you can't run a business. Like you need to get good. So, and I was a very creative, very expressive, very like kind of a monkey at a party. Like I'll bounce around, make friends with everybody. I actually hired an NLP hypnosis person to reprogram my brain to love the numbers. And so this was not natural for me, but it was like, okay, I want to rewire it just enough where I'm comfortable looking at, financial reports and documents because it's just one way to keep score on business, right? There's a lot of measurements, how many testimonials and how many there's a lot of ways you can measure it. But to me, I had to kind of force my brain to be comfortable, and now it's just fun. And I'm like, come on, we need to know the score of the game, like not at the end of the year, but every month.
I love it. And so you've written a book, and it's kind of been this. I have a coach that uses the term iteration, and it's like it keeps forming into something the same but different. I am a very hands-on learner. That's what I love about coaching, is
Hmm.
because it's not what I know, it's what for me, it's what the client knows. And so
Yeah.
for you, what you were doing is taking what you know, but helping me to understand it. It was so fascinating. And is this how you work with clients?
Yeah, yeah. So the social media part, and that's where I have some data art that looks at momentum and leverage. Some of it looks at net profit, our patterns of asking. Some of it looks at legacy and, our body of work and our sales team, right? How many referral partners do we have? And then there's three other ones. But each data art project is about kind of having to value a different type of information, but also different values like emotionally, like harmony or balance or peace. And sometimes we might want to value, ambition and winning and being a little bit more intense or focused versus like chill and relax. So it's almost being able to think differently at the right time in business. So, and that's the art piece. It's very poetic. It's different for everybody. We all have blind spots and we all have strengths. And so when people go through the data art, the workshops and stuff, they build the skills of more critical thinking. And then I used to say doodle the data, and that would really build up for storyboarding. So I really help people with video at the end of the day in finding points of leverage. But if they can't sketch out even just a crummy little doodle about, a widescreen or just different points of a story, it's really hard to communicate about video if we can't even do chicken scratch. And so to me, if I'm constantly creating and I step away from technology for a few minutes every hour or whatnot, it keeps that creative side flowing. And I find that really helps with the social media side because, I'm not telling people like, hey, go draw your way to success. Although there is a book out there called Draw to Win, which I absolutely love. And, but people are like, they'll ask me these questions all the time about Facebook. Well, how many times should I post a day or a week? And I'm like, I think the question maybe we could ask is how many places should I show up online? Because my mom actually taught me about having a sales territory and having, places you go to add value and to give and to, share your wares or whatnot. And she used to drive her Corvette up and down I-5 and 405 and back down I-90. And she'd hit a bunch of places in Kirkland and Linwood and Issaquah and Mercer Island. And she really had that typical sales territory. And now with the internet, people just think their one little watering hole is going to work. And I'm like, no, like, let me help you map out, multiple spaces where you can show up and kind of go fishing in a sense, but it's not just, I mean, it's connecting, it's sharing. Some days we go to give and teach, and some days we're like, I need some inspiration. Well, somebody else do the heavy lifting today. Like I need some gold. And that's why I love some of our shared communities is there's a lot of thought leaders and kind spokespeople out there doing really great work. And so there's this continual sharing and networking that's happening. And that's really how, it can be wonderful.
And it's like when we become entrepreneurs, for me, it was before internet
Yeah.
and I was on my own. There wasn't meetings for women entrepreneurs when I started. And so I love that what I love about you having your space is it's an invitation, come see me. And I love
Mhm.
what you said. I'm not going to have an open house. I just want you to come individually. And that touched me because I thought this is a way of connecting and getting to see so many people. And in this day and age of the internet, it's really easy. It's easy for me to just show up online.
Yeah. Yep.
And but to physically get up and go after COVID, it takes a little more, but it's so powerful. And that's actually how we met, was in a networking group. And those are so powerful because we're not only sharing what we do, but we're meeting other people that do things we need.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many resources out there, but if we only know the same 20 people every month, then it's like we're limited. But if all of a sudden you're adding 20 people to your network every month or every week, it's
Mm.
getting diverse and dynamic, and we always have something for somebody. And that's what's really cool is the referrals happen a lot faster now, or they can when people are really kind of training their extension of their sales force in some of those groups. And people just, if they love you, they're going to talk about you, right? Or if they respect your work. And yeah, and so back to one of your questions you said, so is that data art to me isn't the product. I'm not saying, hey, Lori, let me come in and do data art for you and exchange money. Like that's not initially the ask. Data art to me is it's a professional, think of it as like professional scrapbooking, right? It's looking back over our performance and our behavior over the month prior. And so if I've got a client who's like, I don't want to do video, I don't want to do video, I don't want to do video, that data is going to show up very differently than somebody's like, we got 7 videos out and 8 phone calls came from that. So that's a very different conversation than, well, I don't know how to find new people. Like, well, where are your leverage points? Like, and so it's just a tool to help people better understand how to use social media more, one more enjoyably, but two more productively, and hopefully so there's financial success that comes from it.
Well, and as we were doing it, there's a few things I realized. Like one day I had so many contacts,
Hmm.
and another day I didn't have very many. But also it just shows you how things kind of even out. It was actually very encouraging.
Hmm.
Once I was looking at it, I was like, hey, I am doing okay. I am
You're
making
doing great.
it happen. It was not only informative, but it was very encouraging.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where to me the mindset of when I'm, coloring little circles or doodling is it's a gratitude practice. I am grateful for this conversation. I am grateful for this opportunity to hire my dentist to fix my teeth. I am grateful for gas. I am grateful for the lunch fee. And like it gets you back to I'm grateful for versus, oh gosh, I have to put gas in my car again. It's like, well, let's try to keep the energy in a positive place. And that's why I joke that I'm woo-woo with structure. Like I very much enjoy like the essence and the artistic side and the gratitude practice and law of attraction, that type of thing. But I'm also like, show me the money. Like, did what I do, did it work? Because
Yeah.
if not, I want to adjust and I want to tweak. And same with my clients, like what works for some clients doesn't work for the other ones. And so I've got to find either a different community or a different storyboard idea or a different script altogether, right? Because, a chiropractor is different than a politician, which is different than a professional organizer. Like those are very different campaigns, but I want them to be empowered to know is what we're doing together working. And if not, let's talk about it.
And Dreamosity has been around for 15 years, you said?
16 now, yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Obviously, you had an interruption. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so I've had a couple, and so I was trying to think which one do I want to talk about. My big one is I was widowed at 31, so that was pretty like curveball. But more recently, about 3 years ago now, I had a large ovarian cyst removed, and it was the size of a basketball, Lori. Like it was huge. And I just thought I was getting fat, too much beer and bagels or something. It was at the end of COVID. And so all we saw was my head. You don't see my belly. And so I'd hired a swim coach and I was like, I gotta lose this weight. Like I've always been like kind of skinny girl and a jock. And so to be heavy, it was like, what's wrong? Maybe I'm getting menopause or like I didn't know. And I tried all these tests and I tried fasting and changed my diet and I didn't know what was wrong. But then, so my swim coach was like, this is not a fat. You need to see like a lady doctor, right? And then within 2 weeks, they cut me from basically above my belly button down to my like bikini line, 8.5 inch scar. Cut me open, took this gross thing out. Now it wasn't cancerous, and they call it an ovarian cyst, but some might say it was a tumor. Like technically, my body was doing something wrong, and they don't know what it was from, which is kind of frustrating because I'm like, how do you not know? There are other cases online, like I had Googled and found other people that had watermelon ones, and a lot of women have them the size of like a golf ball or a grapefruit. They're actually quite common, which is like, how are we not, as humanity, how are we not preparing people for and or warning them of what not to do? But if you don't know, it's tricky. It was actually really, really dramatic. And my first surgeon, she was just terrible bedside manner. And she basically was like, Marcelle, you should start preparing for the worst. Like this could kill you type of thing. And Lori, I was devastated. And so I went that night to comedy. So I co-own Laugh Tech. We do comedy shows twice a month. And so I normally facilitate improv and I do rants and raves or curveballs. And I was like, I don't want to do it. I told Brian, I said, you do it. I'm cranky. And he says, Marcelle, do you want to come rant? And I take the microphone and I just stressed out and furious and really upset. And then so him and then a comedian friend and another girlfriend in the audience are like, Marcelle, we got you. You're going to be okay. They put on a huge fundraiser. They ended up raising like $16,000 for me, which was really amazing because I had a lot of shame around like, here I am. I wrote a book called Financial Joy, but I had this medical mystery for months and I wasn't producing much. Who has 20 grand sitting in their checking account at the end of COVID? Like I did not. What it taught me and what was so beautiful about it is I'm not a financial expert. I'm not going to tell you what stocks to buy or how to do the things that, a financial advisor would do. I'm more of one to help people know how to generate whatever revenue goal they have. And you do that by building a sphere of influence. And what I had done and this whole tragedy and financial stress helped me realize I have a huge network of people who love me and care about me, and they would do something if they knew I needed help. And they came together. Like, and it was really hard because I've never been a charity case. I always go to the charities. I always go to the events and donate money or whatever. And it was a really beautiful community effort. And I'm so grateful for people that I wasn't as alone as I thought I was initially. And another surgeon who took great care of me, and some guy at Edmonds, he's like, oh, I can take care of you. I've seen this before. We're gonna, do this and that. And it was fine. But it was pretty interrupting. COVID itself was like, and then to have your body kind of give out on you and you're just lost for so many months. It was wild.
What impressed me when I've heard both of your stories at two different meetings, but what really touched me was that these people stood up for you and you said yes. You didn't go, oh, no, no. You were willing to receive. And when people want to help and you say yes, it blesses them as hard as it is.
Yeah.
So what did you learn about that, about in saying yes and receiving?
Yeah, I initially had a ton of relief. What was funny is, as a data artist, I was watching money move at a much faster pace. I was actually fascinated by the fact that my Venmo account, I was getting, $50, $100 dings just left and right. And I wasn't actually doing the asking. I had this team of people, Ryan and Crystal, Katie, and a lot of people were helping. And that's where, like, when the internet works and word gets out that so-and-so needs help, it can be a flood. And that's it's like, I never want people to suffer alone, because somebody out there has a ton of money in their checking account and they would be willing to help if they were to be asked. And somebody is like, I can give 100 or I can give 20 or I can give more or less. And part of when I wrote Financial Joy, I joked about the snail, the ostrich, and the seagull. And the seagull's not afraid to say mine, mine, mine. Like, they're not afraid to ask. And I still sometimes get hesitant to ask. And I think a lot of women, we're the givers, we're the caretakers, we're the lovers, and we want to help. We don't want to take. It is very uncomfortable to receive. What I learned is that it's okay. It's okay, and it's wonderful. It's beautiful. No one was like, oh gosh, Marcelle needs $50. Like, they were like curious, like because I had done so much in the past. Now, but I do think it's important that we all build our sphere of influence before we need that, because if you just start asking and you're not doing good, I don't think people are as willing, unless it's like some crazy situation or some, and maybe there's probably been charity cases where I've given and I don't know the people, but I know the cause. I think people are careful too. They want to really be connected to the cause, because there's a lot of them out there, right? There's a lot of people that need the tools. So last summer I published a short book called The Allocation Station, wanting to prepare people, because usually a financial advisor won't say you must save 20 grand for medical emergencies. Like, they'll talk about emergency funds, or they'll talk about, but there's not people saying, hey, if your body were to fail, would you be able to function for 6 months? Like, I guess that is an emergency fund, but like, I don't feel like there's an urgency in what I hear from people. And I want there to be like an excitement and joy around even budgeting and saving. Because even if it's saving for generosity, if you came to me and was like, oh my gosh, I need help, can I borrow $500? Like, I want to be able to say yes.
Coach Lori here. You've been thinking about starting a podcast for months, maybe even years. But every time you sit down, the questions pile up. What will I call it? What will the cover look like? What am I going to talk about? Who will even listen? And where do I start? That's where Podcrafter comes in. It takes away the overwhelm and does the heavy lifting for you. cover art, titles, even your tagline. It creates and scripts your episodes for you. It's programmed to do a podcast with the things that I teach. For instance, how to hit the road running, what's a good hook, all those things that take time and energy to figure out. Podcrafter does it for you. So in 7 days or less, you'll have a podcast ready to launch, and you'll step into your role as the authority in your field. Your voice, your story, your stage, finally live. Go to Coach Laurie, LAURIE.com.
Saving for generosity. If you came to me and was like, oh my gosh, I need help. Can I borrow $500? Like, I want to be able to say yes. I don't want to have to be like, oh no, I can't afford it. Learning to allocate, which I'm finding is a very different skill set than earning, because earning is about being charming and selling and promoting and being very like bold, thoughtful, whereas like budgeting is kind of a more private, like it's detailed. It's about what are my priorities. It's a lot of little baby choices that add up. And so they're two totally different data art projects, but they're both skills that I think a lot of us, if our parents weren't in business or if we didn't go to business school, this wasn't happening around the kitchen table.
Oh, no. I hardly learned anything. And I have so many friends that if their husband were to die, they may not know how to do anything. When you said allocation, I found myself going, I like that name so much. But then when you said budget, I find it's like sales. We have these connotations. Yeah. I love that kind of the work you're doing is helping us reframe those things. So can you talk a little bit about the allocation station?
So allocation station, it's actually a train metaphor. So if you can picture like a bird's eye view looking into train cars, like the open cars, you might say like, so you've got your household and your car bucket, and you've got maybe travel and fun and then utilities and like debt. And then you've got maybe generosity or tithing. And so each bucket has and we get to choose the buckets. And that's what's kind of fun. Like if you're 15, your buckets might be bubble gum or soda or new shoes or, soccer camp or baseball shoes. In our 20s, like I really valued travel as a young girl. So I traveled all the time. I was not thinking about real estate. I probably should have been, I could have been, but I was like, I wanted to see the world, and I did. So my priorities were very much about travel and seeing the world. Each bucket, we get to choose how much of our earnings. Now, if we only make $2,000 one month, we can only budget that much. But if you have a $10,000 month or a $20,000 month, now it really changes. But I find that if people don't know their priorities and they get that windfall, it just gets kind of blown on something, the best salesman in front of them, whether it's a car guy or gambling or a trip to Paris, like whatever the best thing is that's presented to them, they'll pick, as opposed to I'm going to put, 3,000 here and 4,000 here and 7,000 here and a couple more over here, like really having that. And that to me is, at first I was terrified of it, quite honestly. I was like, what? I don't know what my priorities are, right? Like there's an initial confusion and then you get really clear. And to me, that's empowering. Like I get to choose my priorities and then I get to make choices. If you have an extra $500, do you put it toward this goal or this goal or this goal? Or, and I have a financial advisor too I'm working with now. So she's definitely influencing some of those allocation strategies. It's just kind of fun when we get to, it's more playful versus like, oh gosh, I only have. And that's where for entrepreneurs, what we have changes often. And that's exciting to me, I think.
When you think about entrepreneurs, you may have a lot of tight months, but you might have a really big month, which isn't usually an option in just a regular job.
Yep, exactly. And I do find employees have a very different mindset around it when they just get the same amount, first and 15th. Whereas when we're self-employed, it's, if we don't do that sphere of influence part right, we don't have a lot. But if once we get that figured out, it's like, oh, I get options. I've actually got a friend now in my program, the Revenue Ringlet, and she's been allocating in our strategy sessions. And she's like, I'm going to retire my husband. Like he's going to be able to leave the job. They're going to have enough cash flow with what she's doing. And he may assist a little bit with their bookkeeping business, but it's like, she has clarity. Whereas 3 months ago, it was like, can we make, like, she didn't have clarity. To me, I'm like, we got to know. And that clarity is exciting.
I love that.
Yeah.
So talk to us about Laugh Tech.
I would say that LaughTech is kind of a client of Dreamosity, but I'm also co-owner. And so what had happened when Brian came to me years ago saying, I have a dream of a humor education company. We were both Toastmasters. We both believed in public speaking and confidence. And so that's where we had met, was at a Toastmaster conference. But he wanted to create curriculum around that. And all my work in California was around curriculum design and how do we take the information in somebody's head and make course material. I was like, okay, humor, that's a fun topic. And so we actually interviewed several comedians and his experience. And so we pulled all that information together and we made a course called Develop Your Mix of Humor. And what we're doing is we're not trying to train people to be comedians per se. We want them to find out their vibe. What is their personality? Are they a little bit more? So it gives people a chance to practice, and then we use it from like a sales tool essentially, because when we're more comfortable having conversations, or like we had one gentleman come through and he's a real happy guy, real stand-up citizen, and he's selling something where I'm like, he needed to be able to use emotion, like anger and fear and pain. And not that he was like making them feel that way, but like if he wasn't able to sit with people in that pain, they would have never had the desire to be like, I'm going to give you the money to fix it. Because if you just stay too vanilla, too happy all the time, we've got to be comfortable with these uncomfortable feelings. And so there's actually a lot of emotional intelligence happening within Laugh Tech, within the courses that we do, because that's part of the game. And the really great comedians, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but they actually take us on like an emotional roller coaster. It'll go from like embarrassing to sad to like surprising to happy to depressing and awful to like, like it's up and down very fast. And I think a lot of people, when they're just the same tone for an hour, oh golly, put me to sleep,
Mhm.
So we're getting people comfortable with what we call soft skills, like the CPAs, for example, they're technically brilliant, but socially, can they ebb and flow? Can they, find the rapport points? Can they ask the right questions and then tell the success stories? Here's why we should pay you $300 an hour. It's really cool to see them learn and grow because they don't learn that at college. They don't learn, I think like at Moss Adams, for example, those accountants, they get hired on as an accountant and then they're basically told, okay, now you need to go get $1 million in business with zero sales training. So they've got to figure it out, or that's a lot of money to go pitch. And if you're overly analytical, the hesitation is, or the concern might be, now everything we take is personal. Whereas the resiliency part of Laugh Tech is like, yes, and yes, they said no, and I can talk to 20 more people. Yes, and I can work on my delivery. Yes, and I can ask better questions. And so it's getting people to have more fun with, and really that goes back to data art, is I'm making rejection pretty. I'm like, yay, I tried it 7 times today. Maybe number 8 will say yes or whatever. Because once we understand that we can really control the outcome, the game gets really exciting.
And when we're going to a lot of meetings, we hear a lot of pitches. They're just, you don't know what they are. They're not clear. They're not fun or funny. And not that everyone has to be fun and funny,
Hmm.
but we want to resonate.
Yeah.
I do a lot of editing. So
Yeah.
people interview people and I edit. And some are so painful because they're trying to interview someone that's like, yeah, and then, no, and the interviewer is trying really hard to get them to kind of lift up and not even be happy, but have some other emotion than that.
Animated or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I always wanted to take the class, but I always worked in the afternoons, and that seemed to
Mhm.
be your best time.
We tell people, go teach this to your teenagers, go teach it to your colleagues at work because it's a very transferable skill. Like it's not rocket science, but there are some techniques and patterns that if you don't know, you don't know. And until you're performing in front of somebody and somebody's willing to be honest and say, oh, that didn't work very well. And so Brian, his nickname is No Filter. He will tell you straight up, that did not work at all, and I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm like, good job, try again. We have a very good yin and yang of the energy and the essence because I wanted to learn too about the humor for my company because I used to preach video, video, video. You got to do video. And then I was like, oh my gosh, you need to get good first and then get on video. And how do we get them good? It was a whole different thing to learn about because being dynamic and a great person to be interviewed or to interview somebody, that's the skill that you can hone that. There are PR people who specialize in, interview skills. But to me, I'm like, I don't want to be good just for one interview. I want to be good every day. How do we
Yeah.
get comfortable in our own skin and having success stories, some to say different seasons of a sales process or different seasons of a marketing campaign? It's a lot of fun.
So, Marcelle, tell me about dinner parties and data art.
So one of my visions is that financial joy would become a household conversation. And so I've been telling friends, if you could host a dinner party, you could host a data art party. Because the idea of 3 or 4 people coming together, gathering, break bread, have some food, order pizza, and then doodling the data. And part of it with like the allocation station module is to prevent train wrecks. It's to prevent this terrible situation that our friend might be going through. We might not say, hey, so and so, that's a terrible idea. But if we're doing data and we're getting creative, they're more likely to be like, sure, I will play. And so I want data art to be kind of like, you remember the old Highlights magazine? So my publication, I'm trying to do these little minute activities. So it's very transferable. Like, this is not supposed to be a secret where it's just Marcelle knows. Like, I want millions of people to know about this because like some people are really good at the sales and marketing part, or some people are really good at the, building assets or having a sales team. And some people might be great at social networking and Facebook and networking and, doing video, but maybe they're terrible at some module 5 in the revenue ringlet is all about the storm. And that's why I've been telling people about your podcast, Interrupted, because everyone's like, oh my gosh, I've had so many interruptions in their life. I was telling my sister about it. But did you know there's actually a number score that like within the widow community, I learned about this, but with the Raise Home score, there's actually a stress scale. And so like if your husband dies or your wife dies, you instantly get 100 points of like your stress is now off the chart. If you go through a divorce, there's like 50 points. If you lose a job or you're trying to break a bad habit, or like there's like a huge list and they're all given a number. And so some of our friends are like walking around trying to survive with these 80, 90 points. And it's like, if they could just say, hey gals, I'm at a 150. Let's get creative. Let's play, because sometimes it's hard. Like there's a lot of shame when a major thing happens because we just don't know what to do. And I'm like, what if data art was a go-to modality, kind of like playing Monopoly or, getting your hair done. Like we do things to feel a certain way. And it's a very collaborative, conversational, and playful approach to solving problems, to understanding wealth building, to understand not being codependent on our partner. There's a lot of nuances and things that would be really good for, what I call harmony in the home. Like, and that's my vision, is for more people to have harmony in the home. But if one person's like, I don't want to look, and this person's like, but we really need to, like, let's bring a little bit of teamwork in there versus making it the burden of just one person, because I don't think that's fair. But for some of us, we don't have a choice. And so to me, I love getting around other people that I can share it with because they teach me stuff too. Or they teach me stuff too. That's the power, is when women start sharing, or men. It's definitely not a gender thing only, but women, we're chatty. We love to just play and create. But the whole dinner party ideas, I'm going to really launch that this year and get people like, hey, if you can do a dinner party, you can do a data art session, a creative session to get people talking and learning, because so often the wise people at the table are kind of drowned out by the loud younger ones. And what if the wise ones got to actually do some show and tell? Because I think the younger I think they are craving information, they're craving insight. And this whole, well, don't talk about money and don't talk about how much you make, that's actually keeping us pretty uninformed. Mm-hmm. And that's dangerous. I'm like, we need to know. I want to know. Stay tuned for more about that, but I'm really excited about it.
I love that. And as a single mom and from my generation, I just have embarrassment and shame around things like, I don't have a 401k. I was a stay-home mom forever, and then I was a single mom. And I find it's easier to, isolate than to reach out. And so I love the way when you and I were working together, there was no pressure. It wasn't like, okay, Lori, how much are you making? Because in my mind, I was like, I wonder if this is going to be like, what did you say? Net value? Your net?
Well, there's net profit and net worth. So both of those, a lot of women don't get training on. I'm like, ladies, this is kind of important.
Yeah, so that was scary to me. And yet that wasn't at all what we did. And I mean, I just left so jazzed and thinking about that. And I didn't take my artwork with me.
I think I still have it here.
Maybe it's on your wall. Yeah. But I love that it opens the door for conversation. And it seems like every interview I do, there always seems to be some element of shame around being widowed, being divorced, being a single parent. And if we can take that and get somehow brush it away and just speak up and not feel judged, it's a way for us to really move into a much better place. And like you said, I felt all this shame because I wrote the book Financial Joy, and now I'm asking for help. And it's like counselors, when they have a problem in their life, they're like, I'm a counselor. No, that doesn't mean you can solve all your own problems.
Yeah, we're still in the jar, right? Like,
yeah.
In the jar.
Yeah, and then we need each other, and we need community. And that's why I love that you have a space, because what it is, that space just to me feels like it's just an invitation.
Yeah. Well, and I can't wait to get it really set up where I've got 4 chairs, but what we'll start doing is broadcasting it with Restream online, so people can tune in from Colorado or California or anyway, really. And that's where, whether we use mock data or real data, the idea is people are getting an appreciation for the patterns because it really is about not just the data, but the behaviors that are changed because of our insight. And I can't tell somebody will stop spending X on this, but if they're like, oh, my priorities are mismatched, they're going to have that self-conviction where they're like, okay, I need help to figure out how do I stop buying these products? But they have to want to do that critical thinking. They have to want to grow and get better. But I think that's the majority of Americans. Like people really do want, they're lifelong learners. They love to understand and they love to help. I think it's gonna be a really great year.
And I think also, like, I used to work with this gal, and she would be like, I haven't eaten all day. And I'm like, I just saw you eat lunch. Like, a lot of times, like, we may spend our money on coffee and we may go, I don't get anything extra. Like, we're not even kind of aware because we live in this world where everything is just so automatic and we kind of tune out. And so it's a way to just kind of bring it alive and go, oh wow, look at I am doing a lot of this. Or we learn when we become an entrepreneur, we're doing all the administrative stuff and we're not doing the selling because we're scared. And then we're like, okay, am I willing to look at it and go, yeah, I'm putting all my effort there. Am I willing to move into this next area?
Yeah.
Because every entrepreneur has to do sales. And if we can make it flowery and pretty,
Right? Let's make rejection pretty.
yeah. So if someone wants to work with you on like go, let's go through all your things, get your book, work with you on your data art, or if they want to work with you on social media management,
Yeah.
how do they find you?
Sure, thank you. So if you go to makedecisionsfaster.com/joy, I'm giving away a free copy of Financial Joy right now. So if people want that $20 value, makedecisionsfaster.com/joy. And then from there, if you really like this idea of you want financial joy, but maybe you're financially frustrated or you're financially chaotic or hesitant often, I have a community called the Revenue Ringlet where we look at this and I have open office hours twice a month. So they can learn more about that at therevenueringlet.com. It's a $2,000 one-time buy-in. They do payments if they need to, but that is the community where they would get access to me up to 8 hours throughout the month, which is really a great deal. And then if people are like, Marcelle, you totally get the social media thing. I got a campaign. I need a social media manager. I didn't know that was a thing. I would love to just talk to them about, their campaign and their needs and their hesitations because I find that everybody has their own stumbling block with it. And if they can talk to somebody that's like, here's what you're missing, let's just fill in these gaps and keep going, it's really exciting for folks. And they can just go to dreamosity.com and book a 15-minute consult with me there. And I always encourage people to spend 5 minutes on Dreamosity. There's a ton of resources. I've been blogging for 16 years. So poke around, look at the different articles. There's a lot of resources there. Stay tuned for the live broadcast of the data art demos because I think that, and I'm looking for guests, people who are like, I have data, let's go. Or I have some mock data, let's go. I'll be like, you're looking for a guest that want to play because to me, it's just, who knows what story is going to help somebody else that's searching the internet and they actually want to see, not just hear people talking, but see the pathway. Some of it's a more soulful connection pathway, and some of it's what's the path to profit. And if I can show them what's happened over here for another client, what a joy to know it's happened. But it's never just post one video and walk away. I think people want that to happen. And I'm like, that's not quite how it works.
Yeah. In your dreams.
Yeah.
So, Marcelle, this has been so great, and I just loved our time together. You're such a great storyteller because often people will speak at meetings, and maybe I can't remember exactly what their story was, but you've told two stories and they've stuck with me, and you tell them with heart and humor. But what is it before we go that you just really want us to know?
Well, I want you to know the data behind your dreams, right? Dreamosity was started. I actually quit my job at Boeing years ago, or for a subcontractor at Boeing, and I started a company because I wanted to help people build their dreams. It didn't start out as social media. That's just been what people have needed help with. Knowing their dream and knowing how to get there, like that's what we do here. And so if you're like, I got this cool dream, but I'm not quite sure, like I would love to talk to you because from a sales perspective, a budgeting perspective, there's a lot of little data points that if you knew how easy it could be, you'd probably take action on that dream. And that's where I love to just help people know, like, oh, I got to do more, I got to do less, right? There's always an answer if people are willing to ask the question.
And I love how Brian came to you and he goes, this is what I want. And
Yeah.
then you were able to help him take that and make it happen. And so many people will say, like, I have a dream, but then they start disqualifying. But what if we just explored it?
Yeah. Exactly. Well, and if I were to start showing them some of the stories, and I didn't even get to show you my scrapbooks here, but I have some really well documented success stories of other campaigns in other parts of the area. Like, and people are like, oh, that's all it is. Like, a lot of people think, like, when I scaled Les Brown from 35,000 fans to 100,000 fans, I thought that was like phenomenal, right? Like, in my head, I didn't understand it. But looking back, I don't have pushed a couple buttons. Like, I don't want to say it's easy, but there are shortcuts and there are points of leverage that if that dreamer knew, like, advertising isn't terrible. A lot of people don't like it, but like it can be a really great tool when you need leverage. It's kind of fun once people start brainstorming and mind mapping and having that clarity that it's possible. I just love your work with the nonprofit that you founded years ago, because that community, I feel they are craving and needing that financial information, the resources, but also the skills to take, oh, I have this idea, to turn it into a marketable product or service that they could make way more than minimum wage doing if they understood that that's an option, right? Because sometimes we look at the job market and we're like, I don't want to work at any of those places. And then that's what I did. I was like, what isn't happening? And so when I bought the domain name Dreamosity.com, I didn't know if it would work, but I had the intention of, I want to help other people build their dreams. And so those people who are out there like, how do I launch? How do I start? Or how do I take this business that's almost failing and bring it back to life? I always want to just encourage anyone that's having a hard time. Let's get curious, and then let's get creative, and then let's get committed, and then good things start happening.
And I love that, because often somebody does have an idea, but they don't know the nuts and bolts. And those are things that you can easily teach or show or connect people. Sometimes we think, I'm on my own. And it's like, no, this is a community. Come with your ideas. Let's see what we can make happen. And what I found as a coach, often someone will come with this, like here's my bucket, here's what I want. And when we start exploring it, it's so much bigger and different, and they love it even more.
Yeah. Collaboration is so powerful. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
If you love this podcast, here's a big ask. Will you share with your friends and family, subscribe, give us a review, and a 5-star rating so that others looking to reinvent their lives will be able to get the help they're looking for? Thank you in advance.